Welcome to the Killer Boobies podcast, unraveling breast implant illness, sharing stories of women who went from victim to victor, interviewing doctors with their insight, and sharing hope and tools to reclaim health. Here's your hosts, Wendy Bunnell, Leslie Smoot, and Brandy Vega. And as always, we want to make sure you know that this podcast is not intended for the purpose of providing medical advice. All information, content, and material of this podcast is for informational purposes only. Welcome to the Killer Boobies podcast. I have another incredible woman in my studio, and it's Keri McElroy. Did I say that right?
Yes.
Yes. I'm like McElroy. So anyways, beautiful. You can see she's beautiful. She really glows almost. I mean, she just has this beautiful skin and this beautiful countenance. I'm really honored to have her in the studio today. And this episode is going to be all about, I think I might have breast implant illness. I might have some of the symptoms. What do I do next? And Keri's going to take us on that journey today and answer some of the most commonly asked questions. So I'm really excited. Keri, thank you for being here. And
thanks for having me.
Do this. This is great. And first of all, before I get too involved, I mean, you are a woman that has a lot on her plate, just like I think most women in America do. You have 2 kids. You're a mom. You work. You are an advocate for breast implant illness survivors and those that are kind of going through it and navigating them through that. You have your own Facebook group that concentrates on helping and supporting. Tell us more about you, because I know there's a lot more than I'm leaving out. There's lots of parts of Keri.
Well, advocacy has kind of taken over my whole life in the last few years. I went to the FDA, spoke at the FDA hearings. I do informational booths at women's expos on BII. I even attended when the doctors did their episode of BII. I was there on the stage.
Wow.
Yeah, that was a pretty cool experience.
Yeah.
I got to meet Eden Sassoon and Angie Everhart, so that was kind of cool too.
Very cool.
Yeah, so I do a lot of work in my Facebook group. I have an Instagram where I post my whole story, and I started before I even explanted, like way at the beginning, back in like 2018 or 2017. So pretty much advocacy has kind of taken over, and I'm working on writing a book of my story to hopefully be released either this year or next year.
That's fantastic. Thank you for all that you do. And really, it's going to take all of us linking arms, lifting each other up, making sure that women out there understand what's going on in their body if they're starting to fall apart and they happen to have implants. That's what we want to be, is that resource to say, sweet sister, you're not going crazy. You're okay. We're going to help you. We're going to hold your hand. We're going to help you navigate this, because it was so profoundly impactful, I should say, on my life, and I know on yours, especially with you doing so much work in this. So that's where I want to start. I want to hear your story. Tell us a little bit about why this has become such a huge part of your life.
Okay, so I was augmented with Mentor smooth silicone gel implants in 2009. I was 24 and I was extremely skinny. So I was looking for a way to make myself feel more womanly. I had double A-cup breasts. You hear your whole life, are you anorexic, or do you eat, go eat a cheeseburger? Like, it eats away at your soul. So after I had my son and I had postpartum depression, I lost a little more weight. So it was kind of a way for me to try and make myself feel more womanly. I got pregnant with my daughter not long after I got the implants, and I noticed that pregnancy was a lot more difficult than my pregnancy with my son. I was only 25. I had to stop working earlier than I did with my son. I was getting really bad, horrible body pain, and I didn't have that before. I was also diagnosed with gestational diabetes. So I had a lot of weird things happening with my daughter that I can't necessarily say if it was implant illness or if it was just a rougher pregnancy, but I'm sure the implants weren't helping.
Absolutely. The toxicity definitely was there.
So by about 2012, I started noticing slow oncoming symptoms, UTIs regularly, yeast infections regularly. My hair started noticing was kind of thinning behind my ear. Just random little things that I basically chalked up to being a single mom working 2 jobs, taking care of 2 small
Yeah, right.
kids.
You're stressed
Stress.
out. Yeah.
Yes.
These things are happening because of stress.
Yeah, gut problems, really bad gut problems actually. I was nauseated for like 3 years straight,
Yeah.
and I always thought it was just, oh, I'm stressed.
No,
By
and I
2000,
completely relate. And I think the majority of women that have breast implant illness will talk about their gut issues. So I think
yes,
it's a pretty common thread for those of you out there trying to put the pieces together. Gut issues, very prevalent,
yes.
UTIs, yeast infections. So yeah, keep going.
Okay, so by 2015, I started getting really bad fatigue and really bad depression. And the only time I'd ever had depression before was after I had my son postpartum, and I had never had any other mental health problems. So this depression just kind of came out of nowhere. And it was really difficult for me to get up and take care of my kids. Like I was so tired, I would drop my son off at school, and then I would come home and sleep until I had to pick him up, and it didn't make any sense. Why am I sleeping all day? Why do I need to sleep all day? My friends were always like, why are you sleeping all the time? You never do anything with us. And it didn't make sense, but I just figured, well, it must be the depression. And then I would sit there and be like, well, maybe I'm depressed because of this or because of that. But there was never any full reasons to why I should be feeling that way.
Right.
By 2017, I had rashes all over my face, brain fog, muscle joint pain, the extreme fatigue, and I started noticing that something's actually really wrong. Like I shouldn't be feeling like this. I'm 32 years old. There's no reason that I should
Exactly.
look this way or feel this way. I had always had really good skin, even in high school when everyone was having pimple breakouts. Like I had great skin, so it didn't make sense.
Yeah.
So I talked to a friend who led me to another friend who told me all about BII. She led me to the Facebook group, and I read all these stories that sounded just like me, except a lot of them were way worse because I wasn't bedridden, which prompted me to go see my original plastic surgeon, who reassured me everything was fine. Everything was not fine.
Yes.
And I should not have listened to her. So over the next year before I actually explanted, I developed almost about 50 debilitating symptoms. I was diagnosed hypothyroid, elevated cholesterol. I had Raynaud's. Half of my hair fell out. My face was covered in the rashes. I had extreme anxiety, paranoia. I started feeling like I was being choked all the time. Just nothing. I felt like I was dying. My anxiety and my paranoia became so severe that I was having constant panic attacks. I was contemplating suicide. I was making irrational decisions where I was so paranoid. I thought all the moles on my body were melanoma, and I went into a panic attack and dug a mole out of my arm with tweezers. It was the worst.
Just not you, not Keri. This is
so
not
far
you.
from the person I was.
Right.
Because the person I was before I was an extroverted server bartender who traveled and hung out with friends all the time. And then I turned into this introverted, panicky, paranoid, sick person who was in bed all the time. It wasn't me at all. So then I finally explanted September 26, 2018 with Dr. Chun. He was able to get it all out completely in block. And over the next, that was 17 months ago. In the last 17 months, my face is cleared up. My hair has begun to grow back. My thyroid went back, dropped to normal levels by 4 months post-op. My cholesterol dropped to normal levels by 4 months post-op. I had this excruciating tailbone pain before explant that I had to ride in the car with a pillow, and I was still in pain. And then I woke up from explant and that pain was gone, and it hasn't come back. And I had it for months before explant, and it was gone. It didn't come back, and it was just chronic inflammation was everywhere in my body where it had reached my tailbone. And you don't think my tailbone is related to my implants because,
Yeah.
well, it's your tailbone.
No.
It's opposite parts of your body.
Yeah.
Um,
But
but
it's
it
inflammation.
is.
It's
And
inflammation, and your body is just absolutely inflamed
yes.
when your breast implants create a situation where your body is thinking that it's in fight and flight. So it's going to promote all of these autoimmune issues, right? And
Yeah.
chronic pain and inflammation. It can show up anywhere. So yours showed up in your tailbone. Mine was in my middle back and spread up to the top of my spine, and then went, like, sometimes would just reach. It almost felt like something was reaching right around my head,
Oh,
and I felt like something was just holding me down like this. It was unbelievable, the pain. And I was diagnosed with fibromyalgia, but same thing. That was the one thing that went away immediately. I've never had that happen
yeah.
since my explant. Other things are still persisting, and that's okay. I'm being very patient
Yes.
and honoring my body and understanding it's going to take some time. I'm only 4 months out as well right now. So yeah,
Okay.
it's so wonderful. And that's one of the reasons why groups are so powerful, is I can look to you 17 months post-op and say, okay, this is what I can potentially expect if I really am honoring my body, I'm being patient, I'm taking good care of myself, I'm watching my diet, I'm drinking lots of water, I'm doing all of those things that I'm supposed to. There's a good chance that I'm going to be on the other side, really reclaiming my health altogether. So it's beautiful. So
Yes.
you're 17 months post-op or post-explant. How do you feel?
Um, I didn't start feeling like I was consistently better until about 15 months
Okay.
post-op. That's when I started feeling like I really turned a corner. In the last few months since then, I have felt consistently better on a daily basis. My detoxing is getting easier. It's not, I don't have as severe symptoms when I'm detoxing. The last time I detoxed, I didn't even realize I was detoxing, except for I got really stinky and my back broke out. So, but mostly like I didn't get a bunch of symptoms coming back this time. So that was nice. Um, I noticed a lot of more positive things after the first year. So the first year was really rough, and now it's getting a lot easier. My hair is really starting to sprout and grow back. The texture has gotten better. I decided to chop off 12 inches of all the dead hair, so my hair is really short
It's
now, but
really
it's
cute. I was
healthier.
just thinking, oh, it's such a cute
Thank
cut
you.
too. So
But it's much healthier. Like the texture is going back to normal. I have all these little tiny hairs that stick up everywhere because I'm getting a bunch of new hair.
yay. So am I right
That
now.
didn't.
Like, you can see it.
Yay!
Yay! Come on, hair. Keep growing.
Right, keep sprouting. But that for me took longer. Like that wasn't something that I noticed right away. Like I started noticing it kind of around 6 months, but not fully until the last few months. So that's something that took longer for me. Um,
And that's
but
good news. I mean, because we want to set up really realistic expectations. When I was going into surgery, I noticed some of the women in the group. And when I talk about group, it's usually Facebook groups, the private, there's several out there that you can choose from. They're amazing. And it's so nice to walk this journey with someone who knows exactly how you feel. And so you don't feel like you're crazy. You don't
yes,
feel like you're making this stuff up, that you're like, no, this is real, this is true, and others are going through it. And so when I was looking at the groups and noticing that, there are some people that literally get their explant and they feel pretty dang good right after. I'm not going to tell you I was one of those. I'm not going to tell you that, because it was a rough go for about 60 days. And then I turned a significant corner after that. But some people feel really good right after. We don't know why, right? Maybe they're less toxic. Maybe they're better detoxifiers and they don't have the MTHFR genetic mutation that makes it so they have a hard time, detoxifying. But in your case, 17 months, you're really starting to feel overall better.
well, I've also figured out a lot of like I had a lot of lingering symptoms the first year, which most of them were like throat problems, because that throat tight feeling didn't go away right away, like after explant. It took a while for me to figure it out. A lot of people also need to understand that after you explant, you might not realize that you have food intolerances that you didn't have. I discovered that my throat symptoms wouldn't go away because it was happening from an intolerance I had to different foods.
Mm-hmm.
And as long as I kept eating those foods, it's not going to go away. So I started realizing, like, paying attention to what I was eating, and when it would happen the most. And I realized it was from nightshade vegetables, which for people with autoimmune problems,
yes, me too,
can cause a lot of problems.
Green peppers, tomatoes especially, spaghetti. If you ever want me to feel lousy for a few days, just feed me spaghetti. And even on zoodles, I won't even eat grain still to this point. So we're just talking tomato sauce on zoodles, and it's no go, no bueno.
Tomatoes are terrible for me. And tomatoes are even worse because they're not just nightshades, they also are very high in histamines. And a lot of us have a lot of problems with histamines, like mast cell and like that. So I have a huge problem with tomatoes. Tomatoes are terrible because foods high in histamine and nightshades cause my throat to swell up. So tomatoes are like a double whammy for me.
Yes.
But I can't eat like potatoes, tomatoes, bell peppers, certain spices like paprika and cayenne pepper. You have to be careful. I have to look at all the different, like if I buy specific spices or whatever, I have to be careful which ones I buy. I have to be careful what kind of, if it has any kind of seasoning in it at all, I have to read all the ingredients. So being able to not eat the things that I know will cause problems, my throat feels fine.
That's fantastic.
But if I venture out for some reason,
then you're going to pay the price.
I pay the price. Exactly. My face swells up, my throat swells up. It's terrible. But at least I know what the problem is.
Exactly. So let's talk about maybe some of the other symptoms, because you touched on many of them. One of the things that I notice, at least in my research and my own personal experience, is a lot of vertigo and foggy brain. I don't know if you experience that, but I hear that a lot. Not being able to concentrate. I actually speak for much of what I do for a living. And so for me not to be able to form words was pretty devastating. You know, it really didn't coincide with what I did for an income. And so those types of things were very, very prevalent for me. Tinnitus, ringing in the ears, I hear that a lot. We already talked about gut issues, fibromyalgia, Hashimoto's and thyroid issues, itchy, burning eyes, dry eyes, I hear a lot. What are some of the others? Can you think of anything else that maybe we have touched on? I just want to throw it out there for someone who's trying to put the pieces together, because this is the resource for them. I want to make sure that we cover maybe the majority, the ones that we hear over and over and over. I think we've done pretty good.
So extremely dry skin.
Okay.
And your skin not looking, having that natural color. Like I noticed my skin was very grayish, not able to tan, very pale. Also a lot of sinus infections. You get infections in general easily because your immune system is compromised.
Oh yeah, you had mentioned you get sick very easily when you have it, and I did too. And heavens forbid if someone gave me something, I got it 10 times worse, right?
Yeah, same.
So same with you. So immune system very, very low. You pick up things and then you carry them longer. Chronic fatigue, chronic
fatigue. A lot of back pain, shoulder pain, neck pain, especially if your implants are under the muscle, because those muscles aren't meant to be lifted off the chest wall. So having two large objects shoved under them when they're not meant to be lifted throws your whole body out of alignment.
Totally.
So that causes pain all down your neck, your shoulders, your back. If it's resting on nerves, you could get shooting pains down your arms. I know a lot of people talk about like numbness down there into their fingers and their hands.
Yes.
vision problems, hormone problems, like I said, the choking feeling, dehydration. I was constantly
Yes.
dehydrated,
Always thirsty.
always
And I wasn't
dehydrated.
diabetic, so I was
Yes,
always thirsty.
it didn't make sense. I was constantly carrying a bottle of water around
Yeah.
because I was always chugging water.
Yeah.
A lot of people get headaches. I've
Migraines.
talked about joint pain, heart palpitations, frequent urination. That also goes with the dehydration and the internal cystitis. Night sweats, fevers, premature aging, looking like you're aging a lot faster
Yeah.
than you actually should be.
Oh, yeah.
Um,
So,
Thyroid problems, adrenal problems, difficulty swallowing,
yeah.
difficulty breathing.
So girls out there that are possibly thinking about getting implants, does this sound attractive to you? I mean, like rashes, acne, looking older than you really are, joint, and all of these things. I mean, we're not here to tell you not to, right? Okay. I have people in my life that have breast implants that have none of these symptoms, that don't feel like they're impacting their health at all. So I'm not here to tell you don't get them, but I am telling you to consider what could potentially happen in your life and that are happening to so many of us. And I think those, as the awareness is being put out there, more and more women are saying, well, that's me, but I had no idea
Yeah.
breast implants, right? So we're getting more and more and more. I think we're going to see that there's more people that this impacts than we potentially first thought.
Yeah.
Doctors were thinking it was very small handful, and I believe that there's a lot more of us. There was one study that was done that says 45%, but 45% will start to get some autoimmune reactions, right? So it's interesting to see, but regardless, we want to make sure you know the symptoms. We want to make sure that you go, okay, I have a lot of these symptoms. I really think that this might be something I need to address and look into. So, Keri, you are at booths at conferences and conventions. You run this group. I am certain that people have come up to you and said, I think that I might have breast implant illness. What do I do next? I don't even know where to start. So, where do they start?
In my opinion, I think that you need to really do your research and understand why breast implants cause illness, because before you start going to make appointments with surgeons who don't always necessarily believe and will tell you it's all in your head, you need to be armed with the information. So you know that you're not crazy. Like, you can't let that surgeon talk you out of what you know. I think it's important to understand that implants are made with toxic chemicals and that they can bleed the gel into your body even when they're not ruptured. It's called gel bleed. It's important to know that you have a compromised immune system because you're not meant to have these large foreign objects in your body, and your immune system is constantly attacking them, which is why the capsule forms. So you're left open to other illnesses, other infections.
Let's go back.
Um,
Tell them what a capsule is, because they may not. I didn't know what a capsule was. So when you put these foreign objects in your body, what is the natural body's response? Like
so
everybody.
your body will naturally start fighting it and forming a scar tissue capsule around the implant to wall it off and protect you from something that's not supposed to be in your body. That happens with anything that's implanted in your body because your immune system recognizes it as it's not supposed to be there. It's not part of you. So it starts trying to wall it off.
Okay. And we're going
Um,
to get back to that when we talk about proper removal procedure and explant. But I just wanted to make sure that we preface that before you continue, so that they go, oh, I know what a capsule is now. So you're arming yourself with information, understanding why implants can impact your health, right? Before you go into any doctor's office.
yes, that's
Okay.
probably the best thing you can do because you will know that going into these surgeons, they're going to try to, make you believe that it's all in your head. You don't need this, or maybe you just need to change them out. And that's not true. And you need to know this information so that you don't feel like you're crazy. You blow off whatever that doctor said, and you find a doctor who will do what you ask without, making you feel like you're insane.
Yeah.
So understanding why you're doing this or why this is happening to you, in my opinion, is probably the first thing you should do.
Okay. And how can you find that information? Where would you send them? Is there some sort of resource that they can find more information about how this is, what's happening in their body, why this is happening, why is this occurring? Where can they find that information? Is it in the groups? Is it on a website? Is it here on our podcast? Like, where can we get this information?
Usually I would send them to the Healing Breast Implant Illness website. Joining the groups and reading the information in the groups is a great way to do it. You can interact and ask any questions that you may have. Reading the information on the website and then kind of going into the groups is a little more easier, so that you have the information, and any questions that you have after reading the information, you go in and ask in the groups. But those two things are the best ways that you could get that information.
I love that. And one of the things on healing breast implant illness, it was my go-to resource when I first started to put the pieces together. And I'm so incredibly grateful for that website, Nicole Deruta and her team, for putting that together with their nonprofit. And the reason why it's so awesome is on there, it talks to you about approved doctors. They have a history of understanding women with breast implant illness. They understand the proper procedure for explanting. They have it by state, and they can only get on there if they have proven themselves with so many surgeries and so many experiences with people putting their stamp of approval on that doctor before they can go on there. So that's a great place, because I know for me, I called my same plastic surgeon and they were like, no, there's, they didn't understand enough information. And so they were really talking me out of even coming in for a consultation for an explant, because their thought was, well, we'll just replace them, like you were mentioning. So sometimes your old plastic surgeon that put them in isn't your best resource for taking them out. Sometimes it is, but not always. Would you agree with that?
Yes. Like I said, mine told me, you're fine, give it 6 months and see how you feel. So I had no intention of going back to her when I finally decided that I needed to explant, because I knew she wouldn't understand and she would probably try to talk me out of it.
Yeah. And you're lucky enough to live approximately somewhere you can drive to get to Dr. Chen. He's in Newport Beach. He only does explant surgeries, but he's got quite an extensive waiting list now because he is so popular. But there's someone close by in your state, I'm certain. And if you get into groups, especially if you do it in the state group, you can ask women, is there someone that is not on the list but you all recommend? Because I know my doctor wasn't on the list when I decided to go meet him for a consultation, and he was keeping track of explant surgeries and the progress that women were having with their own health. So he was on board. Now he's on the list, and guess what? He's got a 6-month waiting list. So, that's the type of thing. So just know, in your groups, you might hear of a doctor here or there that isn't on that list. So it's important to get both of those resources, right?
I actually have in my group, I have a post where women can put down any doctors that believe in BII. So they don't it doesn't even necessarily have to be plastic surgeons. It could be like a cardiologist, your primary care, a rheumatologist. And I just let them post on there if like a doctor believes in BII and has helped you through this. Post the doctor, the state, what kind of doctor they are. So I'm getting a pretty good list of doctors in my group that believe in
What
BII.
a great resource. Functional medicine doctors, because we're going to talk a little bit about aftercare too. So, okay, so they find the doctor, they're going into the consultation. Let's talk about proper procedure, right? Because I think if you don't do it correctly, you're going to continue to be sick. So there's a very, very important element that you need to understand as you're going in to talk to your doctor. So let's talk about that. What is a proper procedure, Keri?
Okay, so you want the full capsule removed. No, it's important to understand that no doctor is going to be able to guarantee that they could get it out in block, which means that the capsule and the implant are coming out together as one with no holes, no tears, no rips on the capsule. So it's all one unit.
Mm-hmm.
No doctor can guarantee that. It's what they should strive for, but it's not always necessarily possible. So a total capsulectomy is what they should have like on the paperwork. They shouldn't be putting in block on the paperwork because they can't promise it.
I love
So
that.
they should be doing total capsulectomy, bilateral total capsulectomy is what my paperwork said with
I'm glad
Dr.
that you
Chen.
brought that up, because when I went into my doctor, I was like, you have to do en bloc. You have to do en bloc. And he was had enough integrity to say, Wendy, I can't promise you that because there's too many factors involved in that. If yours is ruptured, if there's something, if you have a capsular contraction or something like that, I cannot guarantee that it won't come out in pieces. He's like, but I promise you, if I have to be there until midnight, I will get your full capsule out. I promise you that. And that's all I needed to hear.
Yeah.
And since then, I'm understanding that's true across the board. They really can't promise an en bloc because they don't really know what they're working with until they get it in there sometimes, right?
Well, too, even if they're taking it out in block and a tiny little hole rips as they pull it out, that's still not in block. That's a total capsulectomy. So anything that is not a full unit with no holes, no rips is total capsulectomy if the whole capsule comes out. So even with Dr. Chen, he always, usually 99% of the time, unless he's doing a controlled capsulotomy, he takes it out with the capsule still on the implant, but if there's a tiny hole, it's not a en bloc, it's total capsulectomy. So when you're doing, you want to make sure that they attempt for en bloc, but total capsulectomy is 100% needed because so many women have to go back and have a second subsequent surgery because they have leftover capsules and they're not getting better. There's so many things in the capsules that could harbor bacteria, mold, the BIA-LCL. Like, you don't know what's in your capsules. You need to have them removed because
Do you recommend that they have some sort of lab work done on those afterwards? Is that, I know that that is something that they can do. You can choose to keep your implants and they'll give them to you afterwards, or you can say, no, I don't want them. You can also have them sent out to do lab work on them and find out if there was mold or if there was anything wrong. Is that just a personal thing, or is that something that is recommended?
I didn't have it done, but when I went to the FDA hearings in Washington last year, they did suggest that the panel at the end, when they were doing their closing remarks, they did suggest that capsules should always be sent to pathology to test.
Okay.
But at this time, it's up to you. I didn't have it done.
Yeah, I didn't either.
Maybe I should have, I don't know, but
it's one of those things where I'm like, should I have done that? But regardless, it is something you can consider.
Yes.
It does cost you extra money, right?
A little extra if you want to pay for it, and that's up to you. Thankfully, I guess mine came out, like I said, en bloc, so I didn't have anything opening up inside of me, so I guess it doesn't make, I don't know, it doesn't make a difference. I don't know. But if for your peace of mind, if you want that peace of mind, or if there's any kind of fluid or anything in there, then they definitely should do that. But I didn't have it done, so I can't sit here and say like, yes, you should do that. But
No, you're totally fine. That is fantastic. Now, the next question that I'm sure you get is, how do you pay for these? And what is this going to cost me? Can insurance cover this? And in my experience, I've seen women that have been able to get insurance to cover it, but it's not always likely that it will happen. So what has your experience been, and what do you see as the average cost for this?
um, in my experience, I didn't have insurance pay for it. I paid out of pocket, but I have seen some women a lot and get it covered by like claiming like breast pain. But I mean, I'm not entirely sure how to go about that because I didn't do that.
Okay, and
Um,
that's okay because I'm going to have an entire episode. So those of you that are like, but I need more information about insurance, I have someone that's actually going to be sharing
okay, good.
her knowledge about insurance. So it's just overall, the majority of women that I meet do not have their insurance cover it. There are, care credit options if you want to finance
Yeah,
it, which, you know what? I know you're out there going, are you freaking kidding me? These implants made me sick and I have to pay and get a loan for them. Well, sweet sister, the bottom line is, if you want to feel healthy, what is it worth to you? What is it worth? What would it be worth to reclaim your health? And that's where I got to that place in my life. I know in Utah, the average is between $5,500 and $8,500, just depending on if you get a breast lift at the same time. I did not get a lift.
I didn't either.
And so I know it's a little more expensive outside of the state of Utah. Do you have any idea what the average costs are, guess wise?
In California, I know it's around, my explant only was 6,800, but that was scheduled 2 years ago. So
Okay.
I'm sure it's
I
definitely gone up
want to
since
say
then.
he's probably about 85, I think now. I think he's about 85.
85 or 9,
Yeah.
somewhere around there.
Mhm.
Um, but that's just Dr. Chen. I know there's other surgeons in California that are still probably around the 6,800 um, range. I think overall throughout the country, I want to say somewhere around that same price would be. It just depends who you're going to
Yeah.
because, the surgeons that are in higher demand and, have higher, more hours in the surgery centers and stuff, like it costs more.
Yeah.
So if you're going to a more known doctor who's in demand, it's going to obviously cost more, probably more like
Yeah.
9,000
If you're
without
going
a
to
lift.
Costa Rica to Dr. Ozola, you've got that expense as well. So
Yeah.
it really just depends on what your financial situation is. But I would highly encourage you to keep working at it. If this is you and you're financially saying, I don't know how I'm going to make this happen, I teach as a coach, a solution is only an idea away. Just think outside. Say, I am claiming this. This is what I'm going to do. Now it'll be interesting to see how it comes back. Maybe, you never know. There are doctors out there that do so many pro bono things every year. Maybe you're a single mama that lives off of alimony and child support, and there's no way you can do this, and Medicaid's not going to cover it. I still, even in that situation, look outside the box and really consider, how are you going to do this? Because I believe that if you put it out there and you say, this is what I claim and this is what I want to do, and I'm reclaiming my health and I'm going to do it this year, something will happen. Something will show up. Someone will come up with an idea. There will be something out there for you. So that's what I just encourage you to consider, is don't get too downtrodden on the fact, oh my goodness, I have this and I have no resources and there's no way I'm going to be sick for the rest of my life. Because I don't believe that is your end result. You can claim this as your own. So I'm just trying to think of the next questions. What are the other questions so oftentimes these women ask you? And I'll think of it as two as we're going along.
I get asked a lot about, okay, so going into, you had the explant, you needed your capsules removed after surgery. You'd have to realize that coming out of surgery, that explant isn't necessarily going to be a miracle cure. it's just the first step in a long healing journey. So coming out of explant, don't expect to just, I feel great or amazing all of a sudden. I know there might be a couple people that feel that way, but for majority, you're going to be really tired still. You're going to get headaches because you're expelling anesthesia. I had really bad headaches for about 2 weeks, and headaches weren't even a BII symptom for me.
Right here.
See, and you're expelling the meds, the anesthesia, your body is detoxing all that. And then your body actually takes about 8 weeks using all of its energy to heal from surgery. So your body's using all its energy, which means you're going to be fatigued, you're going to be exhausted, you need to rest, you need to sleep. I get a lot of people asking, like, why am I so tired? I explanted a week ago and I'm exhausted. Well, honey, you just had surgery. Like, your body is healing. It would be like that with any surgery. I see that all the time. I also get asked a lot about, well, why did my symptoms feel like they went away for the first month or two, and now all of a sudden I feel like some of them are coming back? Because after the first month to 2 months, your body naturally starts detoxing the chemicals that the implants leached into you over the duration of time you had them. So as your body's detoxing, you start feeling your symptoms coming and going, and you're tired again, or you might get brain foggy or depressed, or you might have flu-like symptoms. And this is typical when your body is actively detoxing and pushing out chemicals. So I personally have gone through about 5 waves of detox, all of them ranging from a month to 2 months. And I would feel good, and then I'll go into detox, and a bunch of symptoms would come back, and I would feel crappy again for a month or 2 months. And I can always tell I'm detoxing because I get really stinky, my back breaks out, and that's when symptoms start coming back. So that first year of detoxing was a mess. I was constantly, I think I'm doing better, and then I would come right back and I'd feel crappy again for a couple of months, and then I think I'm better, and then oh god, it's all back. And even at my 1 year post-op, for my 1 year, I so badly wanted to make a post talking about how great, wonderful, and healed I was, but I was in the middle of this terrible detox wave, and I felt just as bad as I did before I explanted. So I was like, well, there goes my amazing 1 year post. But
you're real. You're real. You're authentic.
Exactly.
You're being vulnerable. You're like, you know what? I'm doing better. I'm doing a lot better, but I'm not totally back to normal.
Not completely healed. I'm not 100. And then, I see a lot of women saying like they're 100 and they think they're better, and then they go into detox and they don't realize. It's just important for everyone to understand that this isn't something that's just going to go away overnight. Like, you have to understand that your body has all these chemicals that need to be detoxed out, and that's not something that's just going to go away because you removed the source.
Yeah. I mean, you remove the root, but it's everywhere in your system, right?
Exactly. And that takes time. So it could take a year, could take 2 years. I'm 17 months post-op right now, and I just started feeling like I was turning a really good corner around 15 months post-op, where my last detox wave was a lot easier. I didn't get hardly any symptoms back. So I feel like I'm finally turning a good corner. But who knows? In a month, I could go into a really bad detox wave, because I know people who are 2 years, 3 years post-op, and they're still going along these waves. So you never know. And I know what Nicole said, it took 4 years for her to fully heal. So it just takes time. You have to understand that.
And it probably depends on how long you had them too. And, my doctor said that there seems to be an equation that has stayed true with his clients and his patients, which is for every year, it takes at least 1 month for you to reclaim your health. Now, at 7 months, if I'm not there, that's okay. One of the things that I mentioned at the very beginning is many of us seem to have this genetic mutation called MTHFR, which means that we don't absorb B vitamins very well. We have to have them methylated, and we're very slow detoxers. So if that is the case, and I have 2 genetic gene mutations, so that means that I might take a little longer. And that's needs, in terms of me accepting and understanding and being patient, I think that makes the process just flow so much easier than fighting and being angry and thinking, oh my gosh, this is my life for the rest of my life. I got an explant and I bought into the fact that I would reclaim my health, and I haven't, so, but we do know that if you will continue, you work with your body, you detoxify safely, not too fast, and you work with it, most women are reclaiming their health. Most women are starting to feel better. Would you agree with that? Or
Yes,
I'm just curious from
definitely.
your experience.
Yes, for sure. There's nothing better for your body than removing sacks of chemicals that are leaching into you and compromising your immune system. Like, that's the best thing you could do for your body, regardless how long your healing takes.
Yeah.
And you also have to, people need to understand too, like, some of these things, just because you explanted, aren't going to just go away. Like, if you have candida overgrowth, that's not just going to go away because you explanted. Your implants caused it because they compromised your immune system, and that was able for the candida to overgrow. But it's not just going to go away. That's something that you have to actually, like, change your diet and take some antifungal either supplements, or if you take it prescription, you have to really be disciplined and not drink alcohol, not, eat a bunch of sugar. It's hard. And it takes a long time. Like, I've been battling candida for almost a year. It's not easy. Like,
No,
it's
that's
very
my biggest
difficult.
thing. Yeah, I've been through 3 rounds of different prescriptive type medicines that my doctor prescribed to get rid of them. Don't eat sugar. Don't eat any gluten. I eat a whole food diet, which is what we're supposed to do anyways, right? Drink lots of water. Don't drink soda pop. Don't, drink alcohol. All of those
Yeah.
things that we really should be honoring our body anyways. I tried to avoid caffeine as much as possible. All of those things are going to help you further your detoxification process. And quite honestly, I have to tell you, Keri, I was a huge emotional eater before all of this happened. And one of the blessings, I always asked, please help me to break this emotional cycle of eating. I can see it. I know I'm doing it. I love to be released. Didn't really want it to go through this way, but my health became my first priority. And I knew I didn't want to live life this way. I knew I didn't want to show up for my grandchildren, my children, my spouse. I wanted to show up a different way than I was showing up, which was bedridden or always sick or always complaining about something that was going on in my body. And I knew I didn't want to live that way. And so changing my diet, getting my breast implants out were just, that was the beginning steps of reclaiming my health so that I can be that person that I want to be. Right. And so the pain has to be worse than, the pain has to be worse than the steps that you need to take to get over it. Right. It's got to be worth it to you. And in our cases, we were like, heck yeah, let's do it. Let's go for this. Because I know you had mentioned at the very beginning when we were talking before recording that you were in denial for a little while, and I was in denial. I was like, oh no, because I loved my breast implants. I don't
did
know if
too.
you did. I loved them. I loved the way they looked. They checked all the boxes that I wanted them to check, right? And so I didn't want to part with them. But I'm just curious, how do you feel afterwards? When you look in the mirror, how do you feel now? Was that a grieving process for you? How long did that take for you to accept your new body?
After my explant surgery, I honestly didn't really care for a while. I just was happy that they were out. I think I felt that way for about 3 weeks, and then I stupidly decided to go try on bras when my boobs weren't completely healed and they still looked terrible. And I remember standing in the dressing room and just thinking, like, what did I do to my body? Like, what did I do to myself? Because they were still surgery looking, like, not healed. And I went home and I stood in front of my mirror without my shirt on and I cried for like
Good
an
for you.
hour.
Good for you.
And I remember thinking, like, why did I do, like, I remember thinking, why did I do this? Why did I take them out? But then when I started calming down and like my boyfriend walked in and he told me how much he loved me regardless what my chest looked like, or, you know, you're still the same beautiful woman I fell in love with. And I realized, like, my health is obviously the most important thing, and my, like, people close to me don't care. Like,
Mhm.
why am I so stressed out about this?
Yeah,
That's the only time I cried about it, and I put it as I had my moment to grieve, because it's okay to grieve. It was a
absolutely.
part of me for 9 years. Like,
Yeah.
it's okay for me to feel emotional over something that I really loved, even though they were making me sick. It's
Yeah.
like grieving a relationship that, even though it wasn't a great relationship, you're best friends with that person, or you were so close to that person and now they're not there.
Yeah.
It's almost just like that.
Yeah.
So I took that as my moment to grieve. And since then, I've had a few moments where, you know, you see a woman in a bikini and you're thinking like, man, I wish I could still fill out my bikini. Like, but then I sit there and I think, no, because you can tell she has implants and who knows what hell she's going to go through down the line.
Funny.
Like,
Keri, I got to tell
mm,
you something funny. Okay, so my husband, he teases me all the time because I talk about boobies a lot. You talk about boobies a
a
lot.
lot.
And so we'll be in a public place and you can kind of tell now, especially, I mean, you know, you just know when someone has breast implants, and he's like, I bet she has a bad case of BII, honey. You need to talk to her. And every woman that we pass and they have breast implants and you can kind of tell, he's like, you need to go talk to her. She's got BII bad. And I'm like, seriously, honey, stop it. Stop it. But it just, we laugh. And anyways, it's just, it becomes your crusade. And, you know, you want to make sure that women don't go through what you did and the hell that you went through. And you hope that they can make a difference in their own health before it gets to the point where you're bedridden,
Yes.
before you're to the point where you're suicidal.
Yes.
Because you know what? We need everyone here. We need everyone here. We want women to understand how magnificent they are, regardless of their chest size, regardless of these things, but they can't be at their highest and best unless they're healthy, right? We can't show up in the world the way we need to show up if we feel sick.
You
So
know what though? I feel like if this hadn't happened to me, I never would have learned self-love. Like, I always would have had that superficial, like, that it it's just completely different now. Like, I appreciate myself more. I have a better understanding of what being healthy, like the whole importance of health.
mhm,
um you know, you always heard people say, if you don't have your health, you don't have nothing.
yeah,
But you don't understand it until you're actually half dead and bedridden and suicidal. Like,
amen,
you
amen.
don't understand it at
Yeah,
all, and as
yeah.
soon as that happens, you realize there literally is nothing more important than
It
your health.
really isn't. Yeah,
There's
and
nothing.
you're exactly right. Our greatest gifts come in our darkest hours. The greatest understanding, the greatest, you know, the pressure that we're put under in those dark moments create a better understanding, just a more magnificent us, right? So we can take this situation. It was excruciating and hard and painful, and come out on the other end as victorious, as something better than we were before. So I honor that, the fact that you see that and you understand that, and now you're paying it forward. And so with us just kind of summing up this segment here and this episode where women can start to get an understanding of what to do next, how can they reach out if they have a question for you, Keri? How do they get in touch with you? What is your group name called? So if they want to be a part of your group on Facebook, they can find you. Can you share that information with us?
Yeah, my group is Breast Implant Illness Support and Advocacy. I also have an Instagram account where I can get messages, which is breast implant illness _ Central CA, Central California.
Okay.
And then my Facebook, Keri McElroy. I accept anybody who's taught about BII or anything along those lines.
Okay, fantastic. Well, those of you that have heard this podcast, and maybe it wasn't for you, maybe it was for someone else, maybe it was for your aunt or your cousin or your mom or your sister or whoever, I encourage you to share this. Share this, like this, subscribe it. You could be that one person that makes a difference by sharing this. It was many people that brought this to my awareness that helped save my life. I truly believe that I wouldn't even be here had it not been for those individuals. So you can be that person, being that resource and awareness so that they can start to understand what's happening to their body. So with that being said, thank you so much, Keri, for being here. I totally appreciate it. You were such a wealth of knowledge and information.
Thank you.
I think this podcast episode is going to be incredibly powerful for those that want to be led to the next step. And so with that being said, thank you, and can't wait to share another episode with Killer Boobies Unraveling Breast Implant Illness. Thank you for listening. Spread the word by subscribing, liking, and sharing the Killer Boobies podcast today. You could be the person who helps someone reverse their pain and suffering and reclaim their health today.